This Ricardian experiment that we've just gone through, in addition to seeming to be a bit mystical, it also should strike you as a bit stylized. There are a number of assumptions that go into delivering this Ricardian equivalence result. And you, as consumers of economics, need to be aware. So, caveat emptor means let the buyer beware, and caveat lector means let the reader beware. So I do not want you to take Ricardian equivalence as being literally true, as even being something that we should expect to see holding in the data. Instead, I want you to understand that this is a useful benchmark. And the reason is because it highlights certain kinds of behavior that are surely going on in the real world. This idea that if you get a tax cut today, you think about the consequences of that tax cut for future taxes and so forth. So let me go through a few of these caveats. First, we've assumed that all consumers face the same tax cut today and the same tax increase in the future. Now, if you have some consumers that receive larger tax cuts than others, then the wealth can change for some agents. Similarly, if some consumers end up getting larger tax increases in the future, then there will be changes in wealth. And once you get that in equilibrium, you're going to start to get changes in consumption choices and in real interest rates. So anytime the tax burdens are not equally distributed across people in the economy, this Ricardian equivalence result is going to fail. Secondly, all newly issued government debt is paid off within the consumer's lifetimes. So in this model, the debt that gets sold to people in the first period gets paid off in the second. Now, if an agent gets a tax cut when old, and he expects to die before taxes are going to go up, then that old person will end up treating that tax cut as an increase in wealth. And the young people then end up bearing the burden of retiring the debt. So this is an example where a tax change involves intergenerational, meaning across generation transfers of wealth. And that causes Ricardian equivalence to fail also. In this case, we've treated all taxes as being lump sum, but in practice, taxes distort behavior. So if they're levied on savings or income or wages or estates, then they're going to change relative prices whenever those tax rates change. And changes in relative prices then are going to induce changes in economic behavior. Fourth, we've assumed that credit markets are perfect. That means that agents can borrow and lend as much as they want to at the same interest rates. But in practice, some consumers are credit constrained, and the textbook is actually quite good at discussing these cases. So that means that they can't borrow, or they can borrow only at very high rates. This then drives a wedge between the return on savings and future tax liabilities. That also generates wealth effects. And then finally, in this model, consumers are fully aware of the future tax burdens. Now, of course, in practice, consumers might under or overestimate future taxes. And that would then generate either positive or negative wealth effects from a tax cut today. Again, if you've got changes in wealth, then these are going to trigger changes in consumption choices. So these caveats are meant to force you to think about how you would apply the reasoning of the Ricardian equivalence result to an actual economy like the one that we live in. And you can see that there is quite a gap between the abstract theory that we've been talking about and reality.